Hey everyone, welcome to the Smile It's Monday podcast. I am your host, Sheldon Barracks, and today we are talking about imposter syndrome. Everyone's favorite topic in corporate. Imposter syndrome has been a topic that has popped up the last couple of years. We're talking about it today. We're going to do a deep dive into my newsletter, which was entitled Say Goodbye to Imposter Syndrome Forever by doing this. So, welcome. If this is your first time listening to the Smile It's Monday podcast, you are welcome. This is where we talk all things career well-being or career wellness. We talk about positive psychology at work, and we talk about workplace harmony, not workplace balance, because we talk about work-life harmony, not work-life balance, because there's no such thing as work-life balance. So thank you for coming. Today, like I said, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, and we're going to talk about the cure for it. And my newsletter this week that came out, which was entitled "Say Goodbye to Imposter Syndrome Forever" by doing this. We're going to do a deep dive into this newsletter, why I decided to write on this topic, why it's very important to me, and all things in between. So let me just backtrack. So this Smileless Monday podcast is part of my Smileless Monday platform on Substack, where I have articles talking about, like I said, all things career wellness, career well-being, positive psychology at work, and workplace harmony. Anything that if you are interested in developing your career, if you are interested in seeing your 9 to 5 in a different light, if you are interested in growing and enjoying your work where you are right now, this platform is for you. So check it out. The link is in the bio. If you're listening to this on Spotify, on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple, or watching us on YouTube, click the link in the description and subscribe to my Smileless Monday newsletter. You will get a free copy of my book, Unstuck Mondays, a guide to uh, growing your creativity and career. It is a book that is near and dear to my heart because it's my first book, and you get a free digital copy by signing up to my newsletter, subscribing, and you'll get my newsletter each Monday directly into your email. And this podcast is, like I said, a deep dive into that email that you get each week. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy this podcast today and enjoy my newsletter when you get to it. But today we are talking about imposter syndrome. And yeah, like I said, this has been a topic that's been very popular the last couple of years in a lot of corporate circles. And without me being, giving you the full official description of what imposter syndrome is, I'm just going to give you bare bones off the top of my head as to what I know it is. And that is when you get into a new working environment or start a new role or start working for a new company, you feel like a fraud. You feel like you didn't earn it. You feel like the hiring manager made a mistake and you shouldn't be in the role that you're in based upon the way you are feeling in that environment at that given time. And that's important. The key word is how you're feeling, because a lot of things that we think and feel aren't really true. And we're going to get to that today on the podcast. But imposter syndrome is basically that we feel like we're frauds. We feel like, somehow on our resume, or we bloated our resume, we bloated our interview, and we shouldn't have the role that we have, because we feel like we're imposters, because either on a call we made a mistake, or on a call we heard people speaking very eloquently, with using office lingo that we have no clue what it means. Or we step into an environment, and there's things about the company that we have no clue, and we have a role that's very important to that company, and we just don't know where to start. And it feels like we probably made a mistake, or they made a mistake, and they shouldn't have hired us, and we fooled everyone, because we're not as great as we kind of made ourselves out to be. So imposter syndrome is when you think you're an imposter, plain and simple. And but what we're going to learn is, imposter syndrome is based on a lot of perceptions, a lot of false perceptions, and the main false perception is the perception that you have about yourself. So definitely going to talk about that today as we go along. In my newsletter, I talk about the cure for imposter syndrome. And my belief is there's one main cure for imposter syndrome. You can go on YouTube here, you can go Google, and you'll find article after article talking about the cure, what you could do about imposter syndrome and all of that, and that will help you. And please go ahead and do that. If this is something that you're really struggling with, go ahead, use as many resources as you can to overcome this, because I believe overcoming imposter syndrome is the first step to really achieving greatness in your career. And I don't want to sound, all motivational speaky or whatever, find greatness and all that kind of stuff. But let's take a step back. Forget finding greatness in your career. How about just enjoying your day-to-day work life? No matter if you're, on your way out the door, or if you're trying to, start your own thing and get out of the 9 to 5, or all of that, or you're trying to move into another role or move into another company. Uh, you have to enjoy your work today, like this day and tomorrow and the next day, until things change. And you can't, if you allow stress and you're unmotivated and all these things, it starts to affect your work. So what I like to do in the Smallest Monday platform is really, really help the everyday 9 to 5 worker feel like they're valued, feel like they mean something, their work means something, feel like they can enjoy their work today, even though it may not be ideal for them. They can still find ways to find value in their work, even as they prepare to go somewhere else. And they may even find value to unlock purpose where they are, where they're feeling like, hey, I can stay here, I can do some great things in this company, in this role. So that's the whole purpose of this Smallest Monday podcast and newsletter, is I really want to encourage, inspire, and motivate people working 9 to 5 that feel like they may not be enough. There's a lot of outside influences from social media and family and other things telling them they should be doing something else, when in reality they could be in the ideal situation where they could be doing great things. They could be living out their purpose right where they are, if they just take a new mindset. So that's the whole purpose behind anything I do on this platform. And talking about imposter syndrome is one of the keys to enjoying your work. You need to overcome imposter syndrome to be able to enjoy your work, to be able to reach your to maximize your potential in the role that you're working in. Because if you don't overcome imposter syndrome, if each and every day you walk into the office, or you go online when you're engaging with your colleagues and you feel like you're an imposter, you are going to suffocate yourself and you're not going to do your best work. And when you don't do your best work, you do not enjoy your work. And I can give you personal experience for myself. When I moved out of the logistics industry into the manufacturing industry, I had probably the worst case of imposter syndrome. When you go from an industry where I went from an industry where I worked for 10 years. I knew it inside out. I knew terminology. I understood the industry. There's a lot of things that I did well. I connected with people well. I built a big network. I went from all of that all the way to another industry to start from the bottom. And yes, I still had a little bit of my network that I used when I moved on, but I started from the bottom. This is a brand new, going from logistics into manufacturing is a new world. And even though my role was kind of related to logistics initially, I was still in a new world. I went from trying to make as much money as I can to trying saving as much money, or bringing value to that company. So, and a lot of other things that were very, very different. There's a lot of similarities, but there's probably more differences. But you have to understand, the main point of what I'm trying to say is I went from a place where I knew everything. I understood how things work, to a place where I had no clue. People were using words that I've never heard before in the corporate world. And so when I went over to that environment, I had the worst case of FOPO. I had the worst case of imposter syndrome. Because I felt like, wait a minute, I'm coming into a space where I'm working with people saying things and concepts that I never even heard of before. Did I really earn this job? How did I even get this job? I really felt like an imposter. Trust me, if you look up imposter syndrome, there should be a picture of me in that role, because that's exactly how I felt at the time. And it was really because when I got on calls, or when I got into spaces, or when I was given resources to onboard into this company, there's a lot of things I read through and went through. I had no clue what I was looking at. I never mind, I can learn. I didn't think to myself, hey, I can learn this. I learned anything in my career, over my career, the last 20 years. I'm pretty sure I could learn this. I didn't take that mentality. The mentality I took was, I understand none of this. I don't know how I'm going to maintain this job. How did I even get this job? Man, I better just, these people are going to find out that I'm not who I said I was. And that's exactly what imposter syndrome does to us. It makes us doubt ourselves. in the clearest form. And put aside anything else you know about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome makes us doubt ourselves and doubt our success. I led a team of about 15 people. I had multiple teams that I led in my old role. And the last job I had, we won awards with other organizations because our work was so good. I had team leads, I had coordinators, I had amazing people that were under me that did an amazing job. And when I came into this new role, I forgot about all of that because imposter syndrome just went boop and made me forget about everything I accomplished and just made me and I instead of embracing the challenge of, hey, I look what I've done in my past, I can handle this. I accepted the feelings of doubt, fear, feeling like an imposter, feeling like I couldn't figure this out. And early on in my new role, it really hindered me because I really felt lost. I felt like yeah, there's no backing out now. I have to make this work somehow. So I got to make sure that these people don't catch, don't find out that I have no clue what they're talking about or no idea what some of this terminology means. And again, the mentality I should have came with was, yeah, I don't know this, but I'll learn. But I didn't, and that's what imposter syndrome does. It makes us not think right about ourselves, but more than anything else, it makes us doubt ourselves. So, in my newsletter, like I said, this podcast is me doing a deep dive into this newsletter. And that's why I wrote this newsletter because this area is very near and dear to my heart because I feel like what I went through, when I feel like someone's going through that same thing, I feel like I really want to help them understand that imposter syndrome is such a facade that we don't even realize how fake it is. It's fear. The acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. You've heard this everywhere. Whether you're at school, at home, in church, in your religious groups, in social circles, fear, false evidence appearing real. Imposter syndrome is probably the most that it is the idea of it is so false, but it seems so real that we embrace it and we accept it and we allow it to not we allow it to affect us to reach our our highest potential in the roles that we're playing um in our careers. So what's the cure? What's the cure for imposter syndrome, right? So like I said, I write this in my newsletter, and I'm going to take you back to a few months ago when I read the book, The First Rule of Mastery, which is by Michael Gervais. And the full book title is called The First Rule of Mastery. Stop worrying about what other people think of you. Okay? The first rule of mastery. Stop worrying about what other people think of you. Or FOPO. Okay? Fear of other people's opinion. That is from Michael Gervais. Let me tell you, I first heard about this book on the YouTube channel Productivity Game, and I probably should have looked up the gentleman's name before I came and did this podcast and YouTube video. But look up Productivity Game on YouTube. Amazing, amazing, amazing YouTube channel. Shout out to that gentleman running that. He breaks down summaries of some of the best self-help books. He makes it easy to understand, and he identifies the three or four main points that really hit home about the book. Every good book has maybe three or four, maybe five really good points. If it goes beyond that, it's going to be hard to really retain it, but he really takes the three or four really good points from each book and he breaks it down to easy to use, and then he makes you it's I don't think it's for me it's not just taking information and walking away. It made me want to read the whole book, and he did one on the first wheel of mastery, and it made me want to run after and grab this book. And I read this book, and this book was life changing. I don't know about you, but I'm a chronic people pleaser, or I'm always constantly worrying about what other people think of me. So this book was amazing. So what am I getting at here? Where's the connection? Well, the connection is, when we talk about imposter syndrome, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to the fear of other people's opinion, and that's just it. Simply put, experiencing imposter syndrome comes down to the fear of what other people think. If we don't care what other people think, we're not going to experience imposter syndrome. It comes down to that. It's that simple. Like I said, you can go Google, you can find articles all over the place. Simply put, if you care less about what other people think, you will not experience imposter syndrome. Because imposter syndrome is all about self doubt. If you start a new role or start a new company, And let me take myself for example. If I started this new company and I said to and I said to one of my colleagues or my line manager, I said, like, listen, I don't understand this stuff, but give me a week, I can read it, and I can understand it. And even if someone said, wow, you don't know this is pretty basic for this level of work. If I could care less what the person said, do you really think I would be experiencing imposter syndrome? No, I wouldn't be. And I think that's the key. But let me help you out here. That doesn't typically happen, does it? We always think that's what people are thinking, but rarely do we ever have someone step up to us and say, "Hey, you should already know this." And let me tell you, if someone even says that, and you care less about their opinion because someone else is beyond them has given you that role, then you won't be experiencing imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is basically understanding and overcoming the fear of other people's opinion. And that's as simple as I can get it. I can't break it down to you more. And the reason I really wanted to put this newsletter together and why the connection is so important, because the fear of other people's opinion is the thing that really, really stops you from learning, from understanding things, from really growing, from really, really digging deep and understanding what you really want to do. Some people in their careers, they want to do something that is completely boring to someone else, and someone else says, "You really want to do that? You want to inspect build? You want to be a safety inspector? You want to be, do this over here?" And if you as an individual find interest in that, who cares what they think? Right? When we talk about fear of other people's opinion connected to imposter syndrome, it's even that. Even when we're in an environment we have no clue, if we don't care about what people think, we're going to say, "Hey, listen, what did you just say?" There are many times I've been in calls where I wanted to stop the person and say, "Sorry, what does that mean? What does pivot mean?" I know what pivot means now, but what does pivot mean? What does eat the frog mean? What does circle back mean? All these buzzwords, which I obviously know now, but I'm talking. There are ones that probably still have no clue about. But there are many times I've heard all these corporate buzzwords in meetings. I had no clue what they meant. I wish I would have stopped them and said, "Hey, could you break that down and tell me exactly what that means?" That would have helped me so much. And not only helped me, that probably would have helped at least another 3 or 4 people on the call, because sometimes there are people using words that they assume other people know, but you'd be surprised how many people have no clue what was said. And I write an article in my Smallest Monday website about workplace jargon and whatnot. You can search it up and find it. But the connection I'm making between imposter syndrome and the fear of other people's opinion is, if you don't fear someone's opinion, you are not going to feel like an imposter, right? The feeling of being an imposter usually comes from your own thoughts of what you think someone might say, and that's usually the case. Yes, there may be people that may make off comments here and there. Most of the time, our fear, our acceptance of feeling like an imposter comes from things that we perceive, false evidence appearing real, false information, because we don't know something and we feel like we're going to sound silly, or we're going to feel like because we ask a question, people are going to look at us like we're an imposter. But most of the time it's not the case. It's really us and our own self-doubt, but it usually comes from what we perceive what other people are thinking. And if we get past other people's either real thoughts or perceived thoughts, there's no way imposter syndrome can touch us. So in my article, I'm going to wrap up, and in my article I talk about two ways to help us through it. Okay, so first off, the fear of other people's opinion comes down to believing that everybody's perfect except you. You know, when you walk into an office, or when you're in a workplace, and like I said, you may have you have a presentation as a spelling error. You may choke up. My voice often gets dry. You might hear it on this podcast, but sometimes it cracks. I'm older than I look, trust me. But sometimes my voice cracks like a teenager. And even in this podcast, it may not be as polished as some of the people and different things like that. But as you go in the workplace and you make mistakes and errors, that's where you start having self-doubt about your ability to do the job, to do the work. And that is and that usually comes, and sorry, the fear of other people's opinions usually come because you think everyone has never had a mistake in their life. Most people, two things happen: either they didn't hear you, they don't care, They missed the mistake, or number two, they actually have empathy on you for that mistake and are cheering you on to do great. I wish I looked up. I read this in a book somewhere. I can't remember where it is, but I'll maybe add it to the comment section in YouTube here, or add it to my site, or bring it up in another article. But in this book, I read it where it said a lot of times we think people are laughing at us or mocking us for making a mistake when they're actually rooting for us to do well during presentations and rooting for us to do well in our roles. And that's the case. The first way to overcome people's opinions is the fear of other people's opinions is stop believing that everyone's perfect. No one's perfect. So when you make a mistake, just think to yourself, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room cracked up their voice during a presentation, or misspelled something in their presentation, or made a mistake in a deliverable somewhere. Everybody has made mistakes at work and has gone on to do amazing things. I wish I had a list here of major people in history that have done that, but you can look it up. Multiple people have done things in their career wish they haven't done, but they've overcome it and they've done great things. The key to overcoming people's opinion is stop is stop believing that everybody is perfect, because no one is. That is the first thing. Okay. So like I said, people aren't perfect, and more often than not, they're cheering for you. They're not cheering against you. Or they're just too busy with themselves to even realize that you exist. That's another one. So we'll wrap up with this. The next piece to learn how to overcome people's opinions is uh, listen. I can give you some wizardry right now and some deep thing. I'm going to give you something very simple. Find a copy of The First Rule of Mastery and read that book. I I am listen. I feel like I'm a thought leader when it comes to I'm not a psychologist, but I feel like I'm a thought leader when it comes to workplace psychology, when it comes to career well-being, when it comes to work-life harmony, when it comes to growing in your career, understanding the value of your 9 to 5 and the work you're doing today. But in this space, Michael Gervais breaks down how to overcome FOPO perfectly, and he does it in such an amazing way. I have that book on my Kindle. I made highlights. If any of you have Kindle, you can make highlights in Kindle, and then those highlights turn to flashcards. You go back on those flashcards, you can swipe the flashcards, and you go back over it every day, and you can just keep rereading tips over and over again. Which is what I do. So I highly recommend Kindle for that. But that's the second part of not caring about other people's opinions is read this book. You will learn so much from him about not caring about other people's opinions. And struggling with imposter syndrome, you'll find that once you stop caring about other people's opinions, you won't even feel like an imposter anymore. You'll feel like, hey, I made mistakes and I can overcome these mistakes and I can do great things in this company. If I need time to learn new concepts, I'll refresh myself with my past successes, and I'll use those same strengths and those same skills to work on this new area, to grow in this area where I may have transferable skills, but it's a new company. It's a new company. You're not going to know. It's a new role. You're not going to know all the things about a new role. It's a new industry. You're not going to know everything about a new industry. So you take your transferable skills and you put your head down and you start learning, but never doubt your ability. Look back at what you've accomplished, and imposter syndrome will not be something you will experience. So that's all I have for you today on this podcast. I really wanted to break down the simple cure of imposter syndrome. Like I said, you can go on Google, you go on YouTube, find videos. I wanted to break down the simplest way and cure for imposter syndrome, and that is to stop caring about other people's opinions. You will see how your life will change once you do that. That's all I have for you today. Like I always tell you, like, share, subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Go on and follow the link in the bio or in the description to my Smile It's Monday newsletter. Subscribe to my newsletter, and you will get a free copy of my book, Unstuck Mondays. Until next time, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.